Welcome, everybody, to this deep dive where we're going to help you prep for that further education principal interview.
It's a big one.
It is a big one. We're talking about potentially leading an entire educational institution.
Huge responsibility, lots of opportunity, and we want to make sure that you shine in that interview.
Yeah. What should people be ready for when they walk into that room?
So often the first question they'll ask is, what led you to pursue a career as a further education principal? It sounds simple,
It's
but
like your why,
it's your why, exactly. And they want to hear your passion, your commitment.
right? Not just like, I like kids.
Right, exactly. They're right. No, they want to hear about a time that solidified this. Like you need to think about a specific experience that made you realize, this is it. This is what I want to do.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of follow-up questions could they ask?
Well, they might dig a little deeper into your experience. Ask, how have you shown leadership in the past? Or how does your experience directly relate to the challenges that a further education principal would face?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and they might even ask about, like, what's your vision? Where do you see the future of education going?
It's interesting you say that because thinking about the future of education, things are always changing.
Always changing, constantly evolving.
So how do you stay ahead of the curve?
Right. So be ready for the question, how do you stay up to date with the changes and developments in the education sector? And it's really about showing that you are constantly learning.
It's like in the podcasting world, like I'm always trying to find new ways to tell stories, new technologies to use. Got to keep learning.
Exactly. So think about, conferences you've attended or professional organizations that you're a part of,
All right.
maybe some industry publications that you follow, and really dive into what you've learned from those experiences and how you've applied that knowledge.
Showing them that you're not just taking in information, but actually using it.
I-
So we've talked about, staying up to date. We've talked about kind of your why, but a big part of being a principal is leadership, right?
Absolutely.
How do you convey that in an interview?
So they'll likely ask you something like, how do you motivate and inspire your staff to achieve their best? And it's really about showing them that you're not just a manager, but that you are a leader who can inspire a whole team of educators.
So it's one thing to say, I'm a great leader, but how do you actually show them that?
Give them a concrete example. Tell them a story, Talk about a time when you set clear goals and you provided regular feedback. Maybe you recognized somebody's achievements and it made a genuine difference. Like think about a time when you empowered a teacher to maybe develop a really innovative new curriculum, or if you fostered an environment that was really collaborative and it led to some amazing student outcomes.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
Because it's one thing to just say, I'm good at this, but when you can give a specific example,
it paints a picture.
it does. It totally does. It's so much more impactful. So we've talked about the staff, but obviously at the heart of it all are the students.
Of course, of course.
How do you ensure their success? Like, how do you even begin to answer that question?
Right. So you're probably going to get a question like, how do you ensure that students receive a high-quality education that prepares them for their future careers? And they want to know that you're thinking about the long game here.
The big picture.
The big picture. Not just standardized tests, but really setting these students up to go out there
Drive.
to thrive. Exactly. And in one of the career guides we looked at, they really highlighted the principal's role in creating this entire academic journey for each student.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibility.
It is.
But it's also really rewarding. So what are some things that people should highlight when they're answering this question?
Focus on things like creating a relevant and engaging curriculum. Talk about, how you would implement systems that actually track student progress, and then also discuss how you would guide and support those students.
Making sure that they can achieve their goals, pursue their passions, things like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, we've talked about inspiring staff. We've talked about, making sure students are on the right path. But what about those moments where there's conflict? Because let's face it, it's going to happen. How do you handle that curveball in an interview?
Yeah, conflict is a natural part of any community, and especially in a school. So you're right on the money there. So be ready for a question like, how do you handle conflicts or difficult situations with staff, students, or parents?
Because everyone's involved.
Everyone.
It's not just a teacher-student thing.
Exactly. Exactly. And they want to know your approach. So think about things like active listening, empathy, clear communication, and then, of course, staying calm under pressure. Those are all really key things to demonstrate.
Yeah, it's almost like having some de-escalation techniques up your sleeve.
Absolutely. And, RoleCatcher actually has some great resources on this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They have a bunch of information on different conflict resolution styles and strategies. And, it's really interesting because their AI can actually help you pinpoint what your natural tendencies are
Oh, wow.
so that you can really tailor your answers in the interview to show that self-awareness.
That's so helpful. It's one thing to know the right answers, but
Yeah,
if you can actually reflect on yourself,
right.
your strengths, your weaknesses, that's a really important thing to be able to do.
Mhm.
Now, speaking of creating that positive and supportive environment,
It's not just about being positive and supportive. It's about being inclusive.
right, making sure everybody feels welcome, feels like they belong.
Exactly. And so they're going to ask you something like, how do you ensure that your school is inclusive and welcoming to all students, regardless of background or ability? And they want to see that you're really taking concrete steps.
It's not just like, oh, yeah, everybody's welcome here.
Right. It has to be more than words. And, one of the things we saw in the career guide emphasizes going beyond just saying everyone's welcome, talking about like programs that actively promote diversity support systems for students with disabilities, making sure that there are safe and affirming spaces for LGBTQ plus students. It's about really thinking about that.
Making it part of the fabric of the school.
Exactly. And, it's great to have a really welcoming and inclusive environment, but we also need to make sure that these students are being challenged academically.
Right.
So be ready to answer a question like, how do you ensure that your school meets or exceeds academic standards and benchmarks?
Finding that balance, though, right?
Yes.
Of nurturing the whole student, but also making sure that they're hitting those benchmarks.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that people should really focus on when they're answering this question?
So you want to show them that you're thinking strategically. Okay, so talk about data analysis, how you pinpoint areas for improvement. Maybe discuss specific interventions that you would put in place. If it's targeted tutoring programs, professional development opportunities for teachers, really show them that you understand how to use data to make decisions.
To make a difference.
To make a difference, exactly.
And you know what else can make a difference?
RoleCatcher.
You know it. Because they have this AI that can actually analyze your answers
It's incredible.
to these interview questions and give you feedback.
I know, it's like having an interview coach right in your pocket.
That's amazing. So not only are they giving you the questions, you can actually practice your answers
Exactly.
and get that feedback. That's incredible.
It's really helpful.
So we've talked about academic rigor, but of course, education, it's also about fostering a love of learning. It's about sparking curiosity, encouraging innovation.
It's a huge part of it.
How do you show them that you can create that kind of environment?
So they're going to ask something like, how do you foster a culture of innovation and continuous improvement in your school? So they want to know that you're not just maintaining the status quo. You're looking to the future, to new ideas, new approaches.
Creating a space where people feel comfortable taking risks.
Yes.
Trying something new, whether you're a teacher or a student.
Exactly. And you can do that in a few different ways. You can encourage teachers to experiment with new teaching methodologies, provide resources for innovative projects, maybe even establish a system where your staff is regularly sharing ideas and best practices. It's really just about making it clear that you value innovation.
That it's celebrated.
Yes.
And that can be contagious. If you have teachers that are excited about trying something new, the students are going to pick up on that too.
Absolutely.
Speaking of trying new things, I actually just recently...
Hold that thought, because we do need to talk about the financial side of running a school.
Oh, yes. That is very important.
Very important, because even the most innovative schools out there need to be financially sustainable. Right. So get ready for the question. How do you ensure that your school is financially sustainable and operates within budget constraints?
That's a big one.
It is, because they need to know that they can trust you.
Right.
With their budget, with the financial well-being of their school.
Absolutely. So how do you even begin to answer that question?
So focus on your ability to create a budget and manage a budget to make those sound financial decisions.
Right.
Talk about maybe how you would seek out new funding opportunities if you need to, and then also how you would prioritize spending in a way that aligns with the school's overall mission.
And maybe a little bit of that, that ability to stretch a dollar never hurts either.
It's definitely a valuable skill.
Absolutely. Now, one thing that I thought was really interesting when we were looking at the career guide was this emphasis on building relationships with external stakeholders.
Yeah.
It's not just about what happens within the walls of the school.
It's a community.
It is. What kind of questions could they ask you about that?
So they might ask you something like, how would you involve parents in the school community? Or how would you leverage partnerships with local businesses to maybe provide students with some real-world learning
Yeah,
opportunities?
like an internship or something like that.
Exactly.
That's so cool. So it's about building those bridges,
Building bridges.
creating that network of support,
And it requires strong communication and collaboration skills,
which are key.
essential for this role.
And who knows, maybe some of those local businesses, they could even sponsor your podcast. I'm just kidding. Unless...
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's get back to the interview.
Okay, fair enough.
We were talking about being prepared, and there are those curveball questions that they love to throw at you in interviews.
Oh, the ones that catch you completely off guard.
Yes, like that moment where you just wish you had the perfect witty comeback.
Totally. So how do you deal with those?
Yeah.
Because you never know what they're going to ask.
Right, and a lot of times it's not even about having the right answer. It's about showing them that you can think on your feet, that you can problem solve, and that you can stay calm even when you're put on the spot. So, for example, they might ask you something like, if you could have any superpower for a day to improve your school, what would it be and why?
Okay, that's a good one. What would you say?
Well, I can't give away all my secrets.
Fair enough.
But I think the key is to take a moment, gather your thoughts, and then try to connect your answer back to something that would either benefit the school or something that reflects your leadership style.
Yeah, so if somebody asked me that superpower question, I think I would say I would want to be able to instantly translate everybody's thoughts into a language that everybody could understand.
Interesting.
Because I feel like so much of the time we have these communication breakdowns where we're not really understanding each other's perspectives.
That's a good one.
And if we could all be on the same page, think how much more we could accomplish. And plus, think about how much shorter those staff meetings would be.
Now that's an amazing superpower.
Right. And you know what else can be a superpower?
What's that?
RoleCatcher. Because they have a whole database
Did you?
of potential interview questions.
It's amazing how many they have.
And you can actually practice
Yes.
your answers and get feedback so you're ready for anything.
Be ready for anything.
And it's like having that secret weapon to help you deal with those unexpected questions.
Exactly.
I love it. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about inclusivity, academic rigor, financial sustainability. But something else that I think is important to touch on is this idea of adaptability.
Being able to go with the flow.
Because let's be real, things change in education all the time.
Things are always changing. You got to be ready for anything.
Right, you got to be on your toes. And it's interesting because we often talk about the interview as like you have to impress them.
Right.
But it's also about you deciding
Absolutely.
if this is the right place for you.
100%. It's a two-way street.
It is a two-way street. So don't be afraid to ask those questions. Find out more about their vision for the school.
Yeah.
What their leadership style is like. Do they align with your values? Because it's got to be a good fit for both sides.
It's like dating. You've got to have that connection. You know what else is a great connection?
What's that?
RoleCatcher. We got to give them one last shout out.
Yes, we do.
Because this tool can help you throughout this entire process.
Seriously.
Oh.
From writing the resume to prepping for these crazy interview questions.
From start to finish.
It's like having a career coach in your back pocket.
I know. And it's free to try.
So go check it out. Head over to RoleCatcher, sign up, take control of your career destiny.
Why not?
Exactly. And that, my friends, is a wrap on our further education principle interview prep deep dive. Hopefully you're feeling ready to rock that interview.
You got this.
You got this.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep that curiosity flowing.